Hurricane Matthew winds 145 miles an hour, gusting to 175, moving a little faster now north at 9 miles an hour, crossing over the western tip of Haiti. Take a look at the system right there, and you notice the eye kind of filling in. That is because it's crossing over that western tip, the mountains disrupting it, but the circulation as a whole looking much better. We still have that appendage of storms on the eastern side, and we're seeing less intrusion of dry air on the western side, making for a healthier storm overall, though weakening a little bit. Forces that track further off toward the north and west. That means it pushes it closer to the southeast U.S. coast. Now, the Euro actually has it a little bit farther out to sea, but the GFS has it right off the southeast U.S. coast. And if the high strengthens even more, it could potentially push the system onshore.
Matthew's proving deadly as it churns through the Caribbean towards the United States.
The massive storm unleashing destruction on island nations, including Haiti. Residents in the U.S. are now bracing for its impact. Florida governor spent the day warning residents to take evacuation orders seriously as the hurricane approaches the U.S. On how close it gets to Florida's east coast will depend on how much damage it does.
Right.
And then the Carolinas, maybe even closer.
And you were saying it's even expected to go up to a Category 4 storm. Right now it's Category 3.
Exactly. And even in the last few satellite images, I'm seeing that eye reform. It's starting to re-intensify.
It's something we're going to definitely watch.
Melbourne, you're past the worst of it. Heaviest rainfall remaining offshore. We're seeing some isolated areas of 2 to 4 inches onshore, but by far the heaviest rainfall so far with the system offshore. And every time one of these bands moves onshore, more power outages. Over 70,000 people now being reported in Florida without power. There's the eye wall itself, the outer eye wall, basically 5 miles just offshore. 2 eye walls earlier this morning. We had the inner eye wall and then we had the outer eye wall. Now there's really not much left of the inner eye wall, but there you can see the outer eye wall touching parts of the Space Coast, but moving now north of Cape Canaveral, which is good news there. As we zoom in just a little bit closer, again, there's that inner eye wall. That's where the strongest winds are going to be, but now, as I mentioned, it's kind of merging with that northwesterly or northeasterly side of the outer eye wall, but it's something we're going to watch really close as it kind of runs up the coast here. We're going to watch Daytona Beach very closely too, because even though the strongest winds are in these 2 bands right here, we're also seeing some very strong and gusty winds in this band. There you can see the hurricane warnings up and down the coast. We're talking about storm surges north of the Space Coast on the order of 5 to maybe 10 to 12 feet. Some of those barrier islands only 2 to 3 feet high. Of course, we're going to keep an eye on this damaging storm as we go to the radar. There you see the storm system right there. A couple things I want to point out. It's actually starting to transition from a tropical to a non-tropical storm. So there you see it's losing that southern eye wall, and there you see that's where the strongest winds are, right there in that northern core as it heads toward Charleston. But notice it's losing a little bit of that color, and then also too as it transitions to non-tropical, more rain spreading inland. It's way out ahead of the system all the way back to almost central Georgia, central South Carolina into North Carolina. So they got a lot of ways to go, and with that piling of the winds there, they could actually see a 6-foot-plus storm surge. As I mentioned, again, there you see the center of the storm. I want to circle it really quickly. This is the strongest core of winds, and I looked at the radar. The strongest I'm seeing right now are about 115 miles an hour. That thankfully is weakening little by little. The other thing that's good news is now the front that came through here may actually take that storm system out to sea. Now,